I would love to know what your mental framework or what the steps look like for you of like getting conviction about something other people aren't seeing, where you're like, I'm guessing at times you thought I should do that, but there was enough negativity from everyone else that you didn't do it and you're kicking yourself. And then there's times where other people were giving you advice and you're like, no, I know better than you. And then it ends up they were right. And you look back and you're like, I could have actually taken that bit of advice instead of just straight ignoring them. So like this balance being down the middle of like ignoring people enough, listening to people enough to still think for yourself. How do you think about navigating that balance being for your own investments?
I'm going to answer that in a bit of a contrarian way, in that I think the reason Silicon Valley has roughly a 50% track record in what's going to be hot next. For example, crypto ended up being hot, AR, VR ended up not being hot. Metaverse ended up not being hot. AI ended up hot. Looking at that, you would imagine 50% of the time Silicon Valley is right or wrong. I would actually posit that there's some probabilistic aspects to that. There are some catalysts that could have taken it one way or another. In other words, to give you a specific example, if somebody had hacked Bitcoin early, it's not clear that there would be a crypto market today. There probably would be an AR market because there's so many use cases, but it's not clear that crypto would have been, if you simulated that 100 times, that crypto would have been a thing. Same thing with AR, VR. If Apple had created the right goggles or if Apple had created the right device, maybe it would be a market today. I'm not as concerned about whether an industry will be a thing or not. Again, this is when I'm investing at the pre-seed. Oftentimes I'm first checking these companies. I don't worry about that. And I worry about what's called portfolio construction, which is making sure that I have the right shots on goal, a diversified amount of companies so that if any one of them goes up 100x, I'm doing really well. That's something I don't obsess over. The second aspect is the founder, very high work ethic, high integrity, and somebody that is a first principles thinker. That's not just riding a wave. And that's probably the hardest thing to suss out because there's a lot of really smart people. High IQ people can be both first principles and not first principles. There's a lot of high IQ people that are just kind of chasing industries or chasing waves. So you want to get somebody that's really principled in what they're building. And the reason for that is nearly every startup has a point where they almost would have died. And what differentiates the entrepreneur that quits or not is somebody that's really rooted. Think of it as a tree trunk that's rooted in their conviction, in their thesis. If you're very rooted, you're going to be able to withstand any kind of storm. Looking for that high conviction. And probably the most underestimated thing from the non-startup world to the startup world is actually IQ matters a lot. Going from an IQ of 130 to 140, from 140 to 150 actually matters a lot because there's only so much execution you could do because everybody's working 78 hours. So knowing what questions to ask, knowing the principles to build on, there is probably a high correlation between first principles thinking and high IQ as well. That's something that surprised me. I thought work ethic would outpace high IQ, but oftentimes high IQ with even a slightly less work ethic will outpace a high work ethic.